Hello, I'm Michael Verney and welcome along to the Indo GAA podcast with thanks to AIB. AIB is at the heart of Gaelic games across both club and county, and in 2025 they're celebrating a decade of sponsoring the All-Ireland Senior Football Championships. With this year's championship shaping up to be one of the most competitive in years, AIB is more excited than ever to bring fans closer to the action. Check out the hashtag #TheToughest for more. Hello and welcome to the Indo Football Show ahead of what is a brilliant blockbuster All-Ireland semi-final weekend. Delighted to be joined by Pat Spillane and Dick Clerkin. And Pat, I'm wondering, over your left shoulder, do you know much about the flower arrangement behind you? Are you party to it, or is it just something that appears and you look and say, oh, different flowers today?
I asked the producer of this programme, my dear wife Rosalie, what is the name of that flower? She tells me it's a sunflower. So thank you, Rosalie.
Beautiful.
Looks good.
Looks very good. And Dick, you're back on terra firma after, as we were just saying off air, isn't it great just to be able to get away for 10 days in the middle of the championship? There's very few that can do it.
If we're talking next week, I'll be up in Portrush as well, Mike. I'll have the blue skies of the North Sea behind me. Hopefully, yeah. That'll be a nice one too. Pat, just looking forward to the weekend. Obviously, Tyrone and Kerry. It's amazing for like a rivalry that didn't exist basically before the noughties. This is a fair rivalry, and even though you won more All-Irelands than them in the noughties, probably because they beat you regularly, Tyrone will take that mantle of being the team of the noughties. Then you had your wild celebrations when you beat them in the qualifiers, I think it was in 2012. Then you had the old COVID semi-final that was nice and quiet in 2021. It's a fair rivalry.
It is indeed, and I seem to be part of it for a long, long time. I mean, look, I was part... in 1986 we played Tyrone. And the one thing about... Kerry teams in those days, when we played Ulster opposition, genuinely they were sort of in awe of us, and our reputation preceded us. We were sort of demigods. We were one of the greatest teams of all time, magnificent footballers. And most of those, particularly Ulster teams, but most counties anyway, but in particular Ulster teams, they were sort of beaten before they ever played us. And it wasn't until such a time as the longer the game went on that they suddenly realised, these boys, we're just as good as them. But unfortunately, the game was sort of gone out the window. And 1986 was a case in point. Kevin McCabe had a penalty. There were 6 points up. If he scored it, Tyrone would have gone 9 points up, and Tyrone would have won the All-Ireland in 1986. But I don't think they really believed in that time. And we struggled back and we won the game in 1986. And then I worked as analyst in the noughties with the Sunday game, and I do hold my hand up now because, well, the one regret I have is that I never patented and copyrighted Puke football, and I should be going to the ploughing championship every year with 10,000 Puke football t-shirts, and I'd make a few bob. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
We'll arrange that. We will arrange that.
The gas part about it is that expression Puke football. I only ever mentioned it once ever in my life, but it sort of got a legs of its own. And to be perfectly honest, and I have held my hand up and apologised for since, because there was two reasons for it. I think for the first ever time, I presumed that, like in '86, that this Tyrone team under Mickey Hart would rock up onto Croke Park, be in awe of the Kerry team, let the Kerry players display their vast array of skills and look on, but they didn't. For the first ever time, an Ulster team came to Croke Park in 2003 and they tore into Kerry. They had no respect for Kerry. They had no respect for the Kerry jersey. And I think we found that, as Kerry people, found it hard. And there's no doubt about it, that day in Croke Park, talking about Puke football, I did it wearing a Kerry hat rather than as a Sunday game impartial analyst. And it was something that stuck to Tyrone over those years, in 3 and 5 and 8, through the noughties, Puke football, negative. And it was a very, very, and I hold my hand up with this, it was a very unfair label on that team, because that team was a great team. And they could play good football. They played brilliant football. They could play brilliant attacking football. And I remember also defending the Kerry team of the noughties and saying, no, because they won 4 All-Irelands and Tyrone only won 3. Kerry are the team of the decade. In reflection now, were they the team of the decade? Absolutely not, because this Kerry team couldn't beat Tyrone. Tyrone were the team of the decade in the noughties. And then that brought us back. So I've always had a bit of a love-hate relationship with Tyrone, and they've never let me forget. And then it came obviously to 2021, the COVID semi-final, and that infamous spat that I had with Seán Kavanagh. You probably wouldn't have it now in the Sunday game, because it's so rehearsed, it's so formally, it's so PC, it's so question and answer, and there's so little time allocated to each spot that an argument wouldn't be allowed to develop probably nowadays. But a big argument developed between myself and Seán Kavanagh that day. And to this day, like, you know, there's no doubt about it. Like, it was a game of bluff. I can still, you know, the words of Kenny Rogers, the gambler, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run. And Kerry in that game of bluff, or Tyrone in that game of poker with Kerry blinked first. Kerry gave them the week off, the week extra, and paid the price and lost the possible other All-Ireland title. So a lot of history, a lot of baggage. But look, that's water under the bridge. That's in the past. It's not something that's going to be brought up in the build-up to next Sunday's game.
I don't know, Pat. I don't know. I think that's still fairly fresh now.
It possibly is, you know, but you'll only hear about all of this after the game anyway. Like the word of warning that I said to you from last week is that 2012 that you alluded to. I mean, Kerry celebrated that day in Fitzgerald Stadium. Paul Gallivan had tears of joy running down his face, and in the next match they were beaten by Donny Gaul. So there's a word of warning there, you know, like beating the All-Ireland champions is not the be-all and end-all. There's no medal handed out. There's no trophies for model victory. So, yeah, I don't think what has happened in the past has any baggage at all. Different management group, some different players.
James, Pat, I actually looked through it. The vast majority of both panels are still involved on Saturday evening.
Actually, they probably are, yeah. Now that you come into it, and there's no doubt about it. Yeah, and we talked about this grain of rice to tip the balance in favour. There's probably no doubt about it that Jack wasn't involved as manager. It was Peter Keane in 2021. But there's no doubt about it. Looking for that extra piece of motivation. Like the Kerry critics are on side. Dara Shea's being nice and singing from script. Mark is singing from script. They're all singing from script. So Jack has all those boys off the same hymn sheet. So he'll need some other angle. So the angle will be probably 2021 and the way Tyrone seemingly pulled the stroke on us for that semi-final and beat us.
Yeah. You're giving tomorrow's headline, Pat, to get the ball running.
Dick, just a quick one there on what Pat said. Honestly now, genuinely, hand on your heart, you always said that you loved Kerry growing up, and you would fall into what Pat was saying there about Ulster counties. Was there nearly too much respect, even from your respect, Dick? Now, genuinely, hand on your heart, paid towards Kerry.
So I can't talk for everybody else. I grew up on a diet of Kerry football. Like my dad, I don't know where actually, I must ask him where he came. We were growing up in the 80s. He came across. He gathered dozens of old tapes of old Betamax and VHS tapes, which were quite rare at the time, but it went back to the 70s, the early 80s. Oh, see that 86 final, Pat? Jesus, I'd say if I watched that final once, I've watched it a dozen times, because that's all we had. We woke up on a Saturday morning, we put these in. So I watched Pat, Jacko, all of those guys, and I was reared on that. And yes, you were in awe of them. They were, and then in '85, Monaghan had a cut at them, brought them to a replay in All-Ireland semi-final, and then that sort of. But yes, absolutely, they were held in esteem, and my dad would have talked about playing against them, and you were sort of, God, you played against Jacko, and you played against these guys, and then as I done a couple of podcasts ago, you had the jerseys of that time, so there's absolutely no question, and it did sort of take Mickey Hart in his sort of belligerent way to sort of say, we'll feck these guys. You know, we're not going to be like everybody else before us. And I've always sort of said, when I was in Leaving Cert, I studied for Leaving Cert English. I studied the Jane Eyre novel Emma, and you might have remembered that there's the concept of the nouveau riche coming into that. I don't know if you know the novel, Pat, and the old money. No. That sort of contrast between the crudeness of those with the new money and the old aristocracy. And I always thought there was a wee bit of that between Kerry and Tyrone. The sort of Kerry were sort of a wee bit pissed off with these guys coming along with their All Irelands and beating Kerry. Who do they think they are? Yeah. And yet Tyrone took so much delight in bringing the old order down, and that has carried through. There's no question about it. Like a win over Tyrone always means a wee bit more for Kerry people still, but going back to the point that we talked about a couple of times over the last couple of weeks, that sense of belief and that sense of there's certain teams in the matchup, because of what's gone before them, irrespective of the team sheets of the day, they'll have a certain belief that we can down these guys. And when it comes to Tyrone and Kerry, Tyrone will always feel that they can beat Kerry because of what has gone before them. That better teams, you might look at the team sheets man on man, that Kerry should be winning it. No, Tyrone turned them over. And that has happened a number of occasions over the last couple of decades. And this Saturday is going to be no different. Those Tyrone players will have 100% belief they can beat Kerry, and that, as we know, matters so much when you get to this stage of the championship. And that's why I'm going down. And look at the weekend's minor final as a perfect case in point.
Yeah,
perfect case in point. I was watching it on Sunday up in your mother-in-law's house, and with 10 minutes to go, Kerry had the game won. Breeze at the back, 4 points up. And just that, again, I've used that word again, that belligerence from Tyrone, defiance to say, no, we're not letting these boys have another handy or errand. This is ours. And they just grappled it back off them and got over the line. So don't be one bit surprised to see something similar playing out on Saturday afternoon.
I tell you something, in the Indo GA podcast bingo card, I didn't have a Jane Eyre reference on it for today. Now, there could have been split season, RTE, whatever. Jane Eyre wasn't in there. Pat, this just because of obviously the minor final win at the weekend, Tyrone are now 2 wins away from a treble that has been done very, very rarely within the GA. They haven't lit it up, Pat. They've been good at times. They were good against Donny Gaul. Like, I actually don't think they were particularly good against Dublin the other day, but they're here, and there's still a sense that they could catch fire when they really need to most. And maybe the sight of a Kerry jersey be something that'll help them catch fire as well.
Do you know, it's interesting. And actually, just talking about semi-finals this weekend, somebody asked me, what's your experience? What was your experience about playing semi-finals as opposed to playing finals? I hated losing semi-finals, and thankfully, I played in 10 All-Ireland finals, and I lost 2 out of the 10. And while obviously the 5 in a row was a huge blow, I felt, All-Ireland final defeats, you could sort of, whereas semi-final defeats, and I was involved in 3 semi-final defeats, I think, against Dublin in 77 and against Down in 91. And I was involved also in a draw with Monaghan in 85, I think. But I felt the defeats in a semi-final always heartbreaking because you were so near and you were yet so far away. There was something about getting to a final. You were part of the greatest occasion any inter-county footballer to be playing on All-Ireland final day. And the build-up and the razzmatazz and the colour and the atmosphere and just the sheer euphoria of running out on the field in Croke Park and All-Ireland final. It was just something that you really love to say. Whereas losing a semi-final, oh Christ, it was the worst of the worst because it was close, no cigar. And you're right about the form. The form of both counties is like, people were criticising everyone about, the pundits got it all wrong the last day. And in particular, the pundits wrote off Kerry. But like, you can only go on form. You can only go on evidence. And the evidence out of Kerry going into the semi-final was they played no Division 1 team. Were they going to be going into a match against the All-Ireland champions undercooked? That was first piece of evidence. You weren't too sure. The more concrete evidence that was there was that 7 of the possible starting 15 were absent through injury. And what the second positive concrete fact was, we were going into that match against Armagh with our third choice centre field. So, like, with all due respects, it's easy to say you were critical of Kerry and you wrote them off. There were the hard facts going into the semi-final. And then if you drill down now, I watched the game back since, and you start to drill down, and Dick alluded to it last week as well. We talked about that magic 15-minute spell. But then you start to say, right, let's take the game as a whole. And for 45 minutes, after 43 minutes or 44 minutes, Armagh were 5 points ahead. They were the better team for the first 43 or 44 minutes. Take away that 15-minute spell and go to the last 10 minutes. And in the last 10 minutes, Armagh outscored Kerry, I think, 5-4. But in that they were chasing goals. They could have scored a lot more in terms of points. So, like, there was 2/3 of the game where Armagh were arguably the better team. Only that Kerry hit Like, you dream about performances like that. They hit the perfect performance for 15 minutes. And right, so that's that. So Kerry, what are Kerry bringing in? They're bringing in adequate performances, a brilliant 15 minutes, put you sort of at the back of the head, a poor performance in going down to Meath, and so in the rest of the matches. But it's no different than Tyrone. I mean, this was a Tyrone team that probably should have beaten Armagh in the Ulster Championship, right? Park that. This was a Tyrone team that probably gave, we talk about the 15-minute performance that Kerry gave against Armagh. The last 8 minutes, or to be specific, the last 7 minutes and 40 seconds of Tyrone's performance up in Ballybofey to beat Donegal was unbelievable. They were 2 points down going into the last 10 minutes of the game. They went at the kick, Donegal's kickouts. They won 5 in a row. They got 5 points as a result of that. But the stat and how brilliant they were, no different than Kerry. It's a different sort of brilliance. But for the last 7 minutes and 40 seconds of that game against Donegal in Ballybofey, a Donegal player never got his hand on the ball. That was unbelievable. And then you went along and said, geez, this is unbelievable. And then they come and play Mayo, and they were hopeless against Mayo. And against Dublin, yeah, they were good. But, you still stay. And I agree with what you're saying. I had it in that winning, playing badly. There's a bigger, better performance, I still think, ahead for Tyrone. There's a lot of improvement there. So this is the beauty about this game on Saturday, that there's still ifs and buts. Kerry's injury problems. We know that Tom O'Sullivan is now out. Like, whatever you talk about the Paul Ganey and the Tom O'Sullivan, we don't have a huge amount of defenders. So missing Tom O'Sullivan and now possibly Mike Breen as well, maybe Ty Morley, that's a big blow. No Barry Dan, and so it's. But actually, I just came across one statistic from that, and match against Armagh, and it was about Seán O'Shea, and I know Joe Brawley had to go about, it was a one-man team. The number of possessions that Seán O'Shea had against Armagh, 55. It must be some form of record. That's unbelievable. So yeah, you can for next Saturday evening, I can give as many positives for each team as negatives for each team.
Pat, I'll just stay with you for 1 second. You mentioned the 3 Crokes lads the last day, and you weren't expecting, if someone had said to you that they'd play unbelievable, you would have been like, what? Is there just, there's a thing in the back of my head just saying, surely the amount of bodies that Kerry are missing catches up. Surely, like, maybe that was a bit of an anomaly the last day. And you're talking about the 15 minutes, and you're like, it is a bit of an anomaly. Like, there's a thing in my head just saying, this is going to catch them eventually. Do you know what I mean? You can't be missing the bodies they're missing and stay standing and stay producing like what they did the last day.
It's a fair point, because, people say, is there a conveyor belt of talent coming through in Kerry? Like, once upon a time, and here's a simple little thing. Once upon a time in Kerry, going back to 70s or 80s, let's say, you went to a club match and the county player stood out a mile. Now you go to club matches in Kerry, and yeah, the Cliffords will stand out a mile. Seán O'Shea will stand out a mile. Paul Ganey will stand out. But the majority of the Kerry team, you'd be struggling to find them. And if you said, like, I remember last year being at a game and I said, that fella played in an All-Ireland semi-final last Sunday, and you said, Jesus, did he? So, like, the players that played the last day, Evan Looney's and Mark O'Shea's, they're good Crokes players in a very well-coached team. I wouldn't have said, if I, like Mark O'Shea, like, they did the job that they were supposed to do. And go back to what I mean, they flooded that middle third of the field. They won the battle for ground ball. They got their hands on the ball and they got momentum. And that was the key. Micheál Burns has been very much, down through the years, very much a peripheral player. Every time he started, he's failed. He didn't make it 2 years ago. That's why he left. He had a season in Chicago last year. He came back revitalised, had a great club championship. But he hasn't been playing well in the championship to date. And he came on the last day and had a game for the ages. Now, can he give another game like that? I'm not too sure. Yeah. That's the question marks about it.
Dick, I know you're a big Tyrone fan. I'd say you're on tenterhooks this week.
I'd be honest with you. I'd be sort of like Pat in some ways. Yes, at different times. Yeah, and I suppose I'm long enough gone from playing now, Mike. You sort of park any sort of baggage you might have from your playing days. But if I look back at Tyrone, like I have huge admiration and respect from Tyrone. Growing up as a young fella, going to matches in Clonus, going to watch Peter Canavan at Tyrone. I don't know what's happened. I'll talk about it in a minute. Whatever's happened through the last 5 or 6 years, the support base has just dwindled. They used to be the biggest supported team in Croker, the biggest supported team in Clonus, the colour, and it's gone the opposite way. But I grew up on that sort of diet of watching, like Kerry, but in Ulster it was Tyrone. They brought that sort of flair and had all that, always had that needle. I was on holidays there at the weekend, or last week, and some guy was asking me, who's the best players you ever played against? I say with no hesitation, Seán Cavanagh and Stephen O'Meara. Ahead of any Kerry player, because I played against them so often, and you shared pitches at college level, at under 20s, and you were just beaten by them so often you couldn't but have respect for them, and they were always the benchmark, as it was for Jimmy McGuinness when he came on the scene. His benchmark was Tyrone, and as it is now for a lot of still Kerry beating Tyrone. There's something different. All right, so I have huge admiration, and still for Monaghan, if I couldn't count how many more medals I probably would have had it not be for Tyrone. And that's something you sort of have, but you use that to sort of fuel your passion and drive, which Kerry will do. So when I look at Tyrone, I look at it from a team that, there was lots of Tyrone teams that even on paper, Monaghan probably should have been beaten at sometimes, but they always had that belief over us, and it played a deciding factor. But going back to Saturday's game, right, there's a couple of things now. We're talking about form, you're talking about players, you're talking about panels and looking at it. I've been just sort of watching Tyrone over the last couple of weeks and months, how they've sort of improved as the year has gone on, and a couple of things are coming up. Matty Donnelly, PD Hart, Pádraig Campsey, 3 massive players with All-Irelands, All-Stars, all the rest. Big games against Dublin, and they'd sort of only been bit part players for injuries and different reasons over the championship. There, as they say, coming to their milk at the right time. Huge players. Kieran McGeary, a player that sort of a lot of people felt sort of was lucky in the COVID year, got his player of the year and sort of fell away badly, didn't sort of back it up. He's having a phenomenal season for them. So they have a lot of players, and that's what you get with Malachy. And I talked about that at the start of the year. Malachy has a knack of getting the best out of his players, getting them all in the tent, and especially the older players who some might think, no, they need to be replaced, they need to be sort of moved on, and new players. No, Malachy sees the value in the Peter Harts and Matty Donnellys and these boys that in other counties they might be put out to pasture, but they're now leading the charge. And I think that's why Tyrone are such a danger down of whatever. But the young talent, the McElholmes and these boys and the Rory Cannavans coming in, it'll be those sort of 5 or 6 sort of established players that know how to beat Kerry and Croke Park and have all the medals and accolades that you need to be stepping up to deliver, and then have these other boys, these whippersnappers, coming at the end. So I think Tyrone, for those factors, not just history and tradition and belief, actually the players on the pitch, they're getting stronger as the season goes on, and it's showing in the performances.
What decides this game, Dick, and who wins it?
I think composure. I think. Listen, you're going to get times with spells. I think you're not. Listen. I'm not going to. I made a few wild predictions last year that I still regret. I'm not going to say anything. But I would be amazed if you see a period of dominance that Kerry had against Armagh. Tyrone just are too wily to let that happen, and they'll be marked for it. They'll have a plan in place that if they do see Kerry getting a bit of a run, how to slow it down. So I think it's going to be a wee bit sort of scrappy, because that's how Tyrone like to play it. They'll not want to get into a shootout with Kerry, absolutely not. They'll want to keep it scrappy. They'll want to keep possession. They have scores and they want to get it to the last 10 minutes, because I do think Tyrone have a stronger team to finish than Kerry do, but they have to get them there first. And I think, like, if Pádraig Campsey, whether Michael McKernan plays or not, I think from what I'm hearing, he is progressing. He's not far away. Like, again, he's a real Croke Park Rolls Royce player, and again, that wee bit of needle and a wee bit of edge that you need. But I think you'll likely see Hampsey maybe pick up Clifford, and all he's going to say, man, he can be very pragmatic. We're not looking to keep you scoreless. Keep him at 3 or 4 points. We'll give you that. Give him a couple of scores, but not let him run the show. Someone's going to tag Seán O'Shea. I'm predicting Seán O'Shea, if he gets 4 or 5 points, he'll be doing well, because he will score, because he's a good scorer, but he is not going to get the run of Croke Park that he did the last day. So it goes down to the last 10 minutes. I'll be picking Tyrone, to be honest with you. I think Kerry will need to have them sort of put away or have a strong lead, because I think Tyrone have a very dynamic bench that will be hard to stop if there's only a couple of points in it.
What do you reckon, Pa?
Well, first of all, it's a huge semi-final. There's huge interest in it. The last time they played in COVID, obviously, but the crowd was restricted that day. The last time the Croke Park was open for a Kerry Tyrone semi-final was 2019. There was 33,000 at it. There's going to be probably double that crowd at it. And Dick is right. The Tyrone people have fallen off in supporting the team. Really? But there's no doubt about it. That rallying call from David Clifford down in Killarney after the Cavan match has got Kerry people absolutely rejuvenated and back supporting. It was very noticeable even just last Sunday in Newbridge. The Kerry crowd that travelled for the All-Ireland minor final was the biggest Kerry crowd I've seen travelling to a minor final for years. But there was a massive Kerry crowd at that game against Armagh. There's another big crowd coming, and there's no doubt about it. There's a groundswell of support behind this Kerry team, which has rarely been seen in recent years. It's the first time that the county is really following them. And I look at Tyrone and Michael McKiernan. That won't he be fit? Because Michael McKiernan is the sort of guy Tyrone needs. So that's a big question mark. There's no doubt about it. I think Tyrone have an advantage midfield. The two boys midfield have the athleticism and the physicality to dominate Kilpatrick and Kennedy. There's no doubt about it. The inside line, if they get the ball quick and fast, McCurry and Derek Canavan, if they're on their day, if they have their shooting boots, they're unstoppable. You look at what's different. Looking back to when Tyrone beat us, one of the very noticeable things is when Kerry are beaten is if Paddy Clifford is marked out of the game. And 2021, Conor Myler did a tagging job on Paddy Clifford and cancelled him out. Now, Conor is not back to full fitness and won't be probably doing that job. You often wonder the lack of a target man with Tyrone. They need nice, handy ball dropping in front of the corner forwards. They don't really have an out-and-out target man. I just look at two things, and Croke Park suits this Kerry team. Perfect conditions next Sunday. The new rules suit this Kerry team because it encourages attacking, kicking football. I slightly fancy Kerry, which means it's a kiss of death. So, it's a bit like a word of warning. Those programs, because we're so PC now, if there's an animal health food thing, like there's a rider saying no animals were harmed in filming this thing, So can I just say, I might get one wrong, probably get two wrong, but please gamble responsibility and don't heed any bit of advice that this guy says. So will you just put that under it anyway? PC, word of warning, please gamble responsibly, and don't listen to him. But I have a slight fancy for Kerry, and Kerry people hate me for that.
Yeah, one vote for Kerry, one vote for Tyrone. The second semi-final is on Sunday. It's Donegal and Meath. Dick, I might just chat about the two managers for a minute here. Donegal probably weren't in a great spot before McGuinness took over. It's like a rising tide has lifted all boats there. Meath were definitely not in a great spot. Dublin beat them by 16 last year. Meath beat them by 15. Owen Frayne is saying Robbie Brennan makes the players feel like they're 10 feet tall. They want to play for him. Just even that idea of players wanting to play for a manager. It seems like a very simplistic thing, but geez, I know I've been in my own playing career. There are certain managers where you'd be like, "Just I will go to war for you," and then there's other ones where maybe not so much. But both managers.
What All-Ireland finals were they, Michael? Sorry,
we played in an All-Ireland club final in 2008, actually, Pat, for your smartness. Good man.
Here's a useless.
Go down there and enjoy your sunflowers for a minute, Pat.
The only All-Ireland club final where there's absolutely no video evidence available.
Thomond, is it?
Thomond College in 1979. I captained them we beat St. John's. There is no video evidence of that final available anywhere. In 1979, this wasn't 49, 79.
And I'm fairly sure, Pat, my old PE lecturer, Dave Weldrick, was your manager, was he?
Yes. He's a man ahead of his time. Actually, he was a guy that brought soccer coaching principles to Gaelic football. Brilliant man.
Yeah, but poor old Dave has since passed, but he lectured us in college. He was, it was a unique experience training under Dave, to say the least.
Oh, my dad too. That's there's a three-way link.
Dave was a bit like Joe Brawley. He had a transmitter and no receiver.
Dave was also one of the first Sunday game analysts, I believe, as well. Dick, but just on the two managers, like they've both had Seán McGuinness, like as someone described it to me in the press box the other day, like if McGuinness and Murphy started a cult, it would probably be one of the most well-supported cults in the country. And Brennan's not far behind with the way players and people talk about him in Meath.
No, like look at McGuinness one. I wrote about it a couple of weeks ago, and I suppose it was in the backdrop of the sort of poor mouth and Donegal were doing, and the short memories in terms of where they were as a county, and a lot of those players, like obviously not last year, but 2 years ago, sort of in 2023, down, beat them well in Uri in the championship, and then they got a hockey in Tyrone in the qualifiers. So they were rock bottom, and Murphy was gone, and players had, I think Ryan McHugh wasn't playing. A few players had travelled. So like Donegal were on the way out. They weren't considered a force. They got relegated back down, and that was it. The Murphy era was over, and there was a certain resignation. They had a good run. They got good turn, and here we are back again. Like it is like if Jim McGuinness, goes and wins an All-Ireland this year, with considering where they had fallen to, and to sort of manage Michael Murphy, which he's doing very well to date. He's still a few hurdles to jump yet, because ultimately it was all about winning All-Ireland. It will be, I said, McGeaney winning the All-Ireland with Armagh last year was one of the best managerial achievements. This will not be far behind it, not because of where he started and the competition that he's had to wade through.
Just on that, Dick, as well, quickly, like it very well. Like their underage results at minor and under 20 wouldn't exactly say, oh, here's a load of lads coming through that are going to be brilliant senior players either. Like that's even more remarkable. That's
right. No, and some managers are fairly smart as well, in terms of they look at a panel and I was at Malachy O'Rourke. I've always said Malachy's a smart manager in terms of knowing when to take a team, when there's something there to build and bring them on an upward trajectory. Malachy's always been very savvy at that, and I've no doubt Jim McGuinness looked at that Donny Gaul player and he says, I'm not coming back for a couple of years to get a paycheck or whatever, and he no ambition for that. He's saying, I'm coming back here to win an All-Ireland. Do I have the players now? Because as it was in 2012, 13, 14, because of the manner in which he trains and pushes his players so hard, he knows that it's a short enough window, because his players cannot sustain that level of training and fitness and demand over a sort of a 4 to 5 year period. So he's going in there with a 2 to 3 year plan. So he's in year 2 of that to win an All-Ireland. And, and you're seeing the results of that. The players are just bouncing off the ground. But as it was the case back in sort of 14, 15, that's hard to sustain. But that he doesn't have to worry about next year. He has got his players where he wants them now, and he's put in a huge amount of work. And he had the players. He had the athleticism of the Langans, the McGees, the McFaddens. He had the forwards in young Gallen coming, and to keep McBrearty fresh and O'Donnell, and then to bring a few of the new players through, get a fit, fresh Ryan McHugh, who got a bit stale. Ryan had played a lot of football, suffered for a few years with concussion, so he's got him right again. So he's just managed his panel and resources so well. Owen and Gallagher, other boys like that had been suffering injuries. Again, just got his good players fit and available at the right time. And then obviously Michael Murphy, the way he's like I was talking about yesterday, he does a bit of coaching up in Donegal. And he was saying, like, Michael Murphy, like 2 years ago in Donegal, he was his influence at club football had even diminished. He was on the way down, but like he's transformed himself physically. We talked about this at the start of the year. He shredded, I'd say, about 2 stone in weight to get himself inter-county ready, and he somehow managed to get himself up to the pace and maintained it, which is a phenomenal individual effort for him, whatever about having the drive and belief and want to do it for Jimmy McGuinness. For Michael Murphy to actually be able to do what he's done is outrageous, because as a man was saying during the week, like he was a bit discounted as a force at club football. Never mind winning an All-Ireland with Donny Gaul and the present year. It's absolutely remarkable. Now they're coming up against Meath. Like there's been a lot of Meath type teams over the last 20 years and plus Like that go on a run, they get a bounce, they get the luck of the draw, they're discounted, they get a few wins against the head, and they're sort of riding on the crest of a wave. And there is an element of that. Like I seen them last year against Monaghan in the championship in Cavan, and I've seldom seen as bad a team, let alone.
I was up there. It was terrible.
It was terrible, and that's a lot of those same players now. So they've obviously found something with Robbie Brennan, as you say. The new rules absolutely suit them. Like, they've got big, strongly built players that wouldn't have counted and didn't count in the old rules. They just couldn't sort of manage. And Meath are that type of traditional county that the way that the game had gone never seemed to suit. And it definitely suits them. That sort of far large, or out in the middle, get it out there, win, and they always liked an aggressive, contact-based type game, like the Sean Boylan teams of old, and they flourished in that. Obviously, they were very fortunate that Jordan Morris's season wasn't ended when we all thought it was. But the psychological dynamics have completely shifted. They're not meeting it. Like Jim McGuinness will be finding every way to sort of displace any sense of complacency around Meath, that they might have benefited against other teams. There's no question, if Dublin play Meath in the morning, Dublin are beating them. If Kerry play Meath in the morning, Kerry are beating them. Not so sure about Galway, just don't trust Galway enough. But they benefited from being taken.
There's lots of comments on the YouTube that Dick has yet again showed disrespect for Meath.
It's not disrespect, because Monaghan would have been the same in the past. We would have beaten teams that people sort of, and you didn't back it up. But you have to have huge credit for them in terms of they're an inspiration to. Like, there's not too many teams in Division 2 or 3, or even the top two teams in Division 4 wouldn't fancy having a crack at Meath. Do you know what I mean? They're not that far ahead, and they haven't enough road laid to sort of say they're definitely a top 4 or 5 team. But in terms of this season, the results that they've had, the form and the fitness of their player, they're there on their merits. Now, but it's not to underestimate the massive step up and challenge that this Sunday is going to be. And I say, if they listen to too much of the backslappers and all the rest, my fear would be that they could get routed against Donny Gaul. I hope it's not. I really hope they compete and do themselves justice, because those players and the management deserve that. But if they go in thinking they're a wee bit better than they are against a Donny Gaul team, will think nothing of filleting them. They have to be very, 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 very prepared for that. That's my point, because I don't want to see that happen.
Yeah,
they deserve to go there and compete. But I think if Donny Gaul play like they played in the second half against Monaghan for 60 plus minutes, and Meath don't bring their level of performance up to the level that they have, it could be an uncomfortable afternoon, and I don't want to see that.
Do you see this being a bridge too far, Pat, for Meath?
I think of the two semi-finals, I think I would be more confident of predicting the result of this than the result of the Kerry Tyrone game. I would be confidently expecting Donegal to win it, and that's not in any way writing off Meath's chances or anything like that. But you look at this. You talk about the two managers. I mean, at the start of the year, when Robbie Brennan took over after Colm O'Rourke's reign, like, expectations would have been low. It would have been about consolidation, and if there was any ambition, it would be probably have to get promotion out of Division 2. If you told any Meath supporter they'd be beating Kerry, Dublin, and Galway and being an All-Ireland semi-final, you'd say, Jesus, they're in, the boys with the white coats would be called in and you'd be whisked away. So they're in bonus territory, but they're there deservedly. And very simply, we talked about it last week. One, Robbie Brennan, just like Mick O'Dwyer, as my manager, has instilled in that bunch of fellas belief. And when you instill belief in a bunch of lads, the sky is the limit. But also, there's the innocence of youth, because you don't have fear. And this is this is no different. 1975, we were rank outsiders heading up to Dublin to play Dublin, the reigning All-Ireland champions and red-hot favourites. But the innocence of youth, we believed we were going to win. And there's no doubt about it. Meath players for next Sunday, Meath players are going with that innocence of youth, that belief that they can win. So that's Meath. But, once last year was out of the way, and last year was year one with Jimmy McGuinness, and you knew there was a few teething problems. And look, with all due respects, they threw away an All-Ireland semi-final against Galway through shooting inefficiency in the second half. But this year, from the word go, you could see this plan is here now. This is it. So the savage training session started. First piece of the final piece of the jigsaw in November, Michael Murphy is added to the panel. December the 7th, guess what? The day the inter-county training opened, they're off to Abu Dhabi for warm weather training. They play in the league, and by the end of February, when they're secure in Division 1, they're now focused on the opening round championship against Derry. So this is a very well orchestrated, very premeditated plan. And bar that blip in Ballybuffet, it's going according to plan. And what you see is what you get. There's a change in some personnel. There's probably more shooters now in this Donegal team than one in Ireland. But what you see is what you get. It's still the same template. It's that hard running, that off the ball running, that angles of running, that support play, that kings of the turnover, that speed and transition, get it into the shooters, that running game. It's the same template. So are they the finished article? Well, we talked about that last 10 minutes against Tyrone where they were disappointing. We know the first half against Louth, first half against Monaghan, the last day quite poor. Their second half performances then on the other hand against Louth and against Monaghan were unreal. And there's probably no county, and that includes Meath, and Meath are a fit team, but there is no county in this year's championship that can match Meath in terms of their conditioning, their fitness, their hard running. Now, next Sunday, there's a strong possibility. High temperatures. It's going to be a warm day. I always look at a couple of weaknesses. Are they the finished article? They're far from the finished article because we know that their zonal defence, Monaghan, picked holes in that zonal defence in that first half. They were very, very effective in switching the play, having an overload on the other side, one-to-ones, and so the zonal defence. The reliance on Michael Murphy, he's still producing the goods. Say Meath decide to put a runner on Michael Murphy and say, right, we're going to play on our terms. We're going to run. We're going to force you to backtrack. We're going to force you to defend. Now, that'll be interesting because Michael is not in that physical condition for that sort of game. And that running game, and particularly if it's going to be hot conditions in Croke Park next Sunday, that running game is a tough running game. Despite their unbelievable fitness level, it's a tough running game to maintain for 70 plus minutes in Croke Park. I fancy them to win.
Okay, I think the tree up makes that a little bit more, you can control it a bit more. Like if he's wanted to tree up, he only has to go as far as midfield. But I understand what you're saying. He is often around the middle of the field. And if they will try and put him on the back foot.
While you're on Meath, and I'm not ruling out Meath because there's no doubt about it. Look, you talk about character and composure. When they played Dublin in the championship, Dublin came back to 2 points. Momentum was with the Dubs. But geez, they showed great character, great composure to score the final 2 points and deservedly win the game. And it was no different the last day against Galway. When Galway went 3 points ahead, 10 minutes to go, momentum was with Galway, but they showed the character, they showed the composure, they regained momentum, and away they go. They have the middle third players, as Dick alluded, that physically big, strong boys. They have serious forwards, the likes of Jordan Morris, Matthew Costello, there's no doubt about it. What I like about them, they're probably the only team to go man-to-man. They really are traditional man-to-man. I think that could be an effective way to play Donegal, because with Donegal's running game, support runners, angles of running, quick hands, zonal defence can easily pick holes through a zonal defence. If it's an effective man-to-man, and by Jesus, Meath have brilliant man-to-man.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about like Lavin, you're talking about Donald Keoghan, you're talking about 2 young lads who have been a revelation in this year's championship. Kieran Caulfield at wing back is in contention for one of the young players of the year, and Seán Rafferty, who never played minor, never played under 21, he's been a revelation at full back. They have pace, they have athleticism, and they can mark. So I'm not ruling out Meath, but I think I'll give a hesitant vote to Kerry and a more confident vote to Donegal. So the green and gold's to clash in the All-Ireland final in 3 weeks' time.
I think the thing with Donegal is you know exactly what you're going to get out of them.
Yeah.
Just on the curtain raiser on Saturday, Dick, Kildare and Limerick. Kildare, it's not where they wanted to be, and Kevin Feely and Brian Flanagan have spoken fairly honestly about that. But having been knocked out in the Leinster semi-final narrowly by Louth, this is where they plan to be. And they have a great chance of getting, an automatic route into the All-Ireland Senior Championship next year now on Saturday evening.
Yeah, and you have to give it credit. And it's a testament to the competition that now, and we said this at the start of the year as the Tailteann Cup got up and running, you could definitely get a sense of a lot more counties taking it seriously and trying seeing the merits and looking at Meath, used it as a stepping stone to where they are now, down, and now potentially Kildare or Limerick. And Kildare should be winning this game. You know, they're further down the tracks. They should be more used to Croke Park and be able to play at a higher pace. I've seen Limerick in the league final, and they look a bit more of a sort of Division 3/4 team, bit strongly built. They'll compete well, but Kildare should be winning this game on form. And, you know, if they do, it's a testament to Brian Flanagan and those players for knuckling down, taking the medicine, not letting their egos and whatever else might get in the way and say we're too good to be playing the Tailteann Cup that other counties might have said, and previous versions of Tailteann Cups, that they were too good to be competing at that second tier. It is what it is, and they've gone, and there'll be a big crowd down. I know a few Limerick people are going up to watch it. It'll be a good curtain raiser. I'm going to go down. I'm going down for the day. I'm going to get the 2 games because I think it'll be not just a curtain raiser. I think it should be a good contest on its own. And because Kildare, listen, Limerick, there's no bad team, albeit at the second tier, got as far as a final. Like Limerick are there on their merits as much as Meath, because they had to win plenty of tough games against decent teams to get there. And Kildare know themselves, they can't be trusted against any team over the years. They've turned up against a lot of teams that were maybe a couple of divisions down, so they'll know that they'll have to perform as well. And it's making for a good game, and it's a huge credit to both teams for putting their full effort into it, and it's what that competition's there. And I think what I'm hearing is there's going to be, I think there's 75,000-80,000 predicted for Saturday, and a sellout, because I was looking at tickets last night and bringing the boys down, and the best I could get was a few lower Davin. There's very little tickets going, and I think Kildare and Limerick are going to take a crowd as well, which is great.
Just final word, Pat, to you. One of a great opponent of yours during your own playing days passed away in recent hours. Seán Doherty, who was Dublin captain in 1974. That's four of that team, 4 of Heffo's army that are no longer with us, unfortunately. And I'm sure you have very good memories of Seán on and off the pitch.
Seán was a traditional fullback, a man who minded the house, protected the square, protected his goalie, Paddy Cullen. He was physically strong, physically imposing, a very impressive high-fielding fullback. He was a warrior on the field, a leader on the field, but also a leader off the field. An absolute gentleman, a lovely, lovely man. And it's only a couple of weeks ago that Mickey Ned O'Sullivan and Alan Larkin organised a get-together for the 1975 Kerry and Dublin teams. We had a brilliant 2 days, golf in the ring at Kerry, music sessions, Spillane's Bar, a boat tour of Kinmare Bay, and a beautiful dinner in Sheen Falls. Mickey Ned O'Sullivan gave a speech that night a couple of weeks ago, and Seán Doherty gave a speech that night. And it was a great 2 days of rekindling friendships, old stories, nostalgia. The one thing about that Dublin and Kerry team is that we were deadly rivals on the field, and to this day, the greatest of friends off the field. And I will say this, and I have no apologies in making. In the 1970s, the J was in the doldrums. J in Dublin was non-existent. Ireland was in the doldrums. Dublin came along in 1974. Kerry came along in 1975. And that rivalry between Kerry and Dublin, in my opinion, saved the J from oblivion, and it made the J sexy again. And the one great thing about, looking back at it now, we felt when we were playing that we were so fit, so strong, invincible. There was such a sense of invincibility. And 4 of the strongest warriors in that Dublin team, Paddy Cullen, Anton O'Toole, Seán Doherty and Brian Mullins, they're gone. 3 of the most powerful warriors that we had, John Egan, Tim Kennelly, Paddy O'Shea, gone. And, life is so short. I have great memories of Seán Doherty, great memories of the clashes with the Dubs. But the great thing about that Dublin team, they were very successful players, but they were successful business people off the field. But they were marketing gold for the J, because they were just so personal, so full of life. It's something that I think we missed the trick with the present Dublin team, especially under Jim Gavin, who were so brilliant. But they were so controlled that we never got a chance to promote those. And they were also just great players, great role models. But they were never allowed to promote the J, to promote Gaelic football, to be role models for the J. But Seán Doherty and that Dublin team in the 70s were just were just unbelievable warriors, but very special people. And Seán Doherty was just a gentleman. Not as much on the field, a tough man on the field now. Didn't take prisoners. I have to indirectly thank Seán Doherty, because his was the final belt that knocked out Mickey Ned O'Sullivan in the 1975 final. And if you get a chance to look through it,
it's outrageous, isn't it?
It is. There was six red card tackles in the passage. But anyway, indirectly, it gave me my most memorable occasion ever, because I was the vice captain and Kerry won, and I got the great honour of accepting the cup on behalf of the Kerry team in 1975. But off the field, what a gentleman, what a character, what a lovely, lovely man. So my condolences go out to his family and to the wider Dublin GA family. But that Dublin team, special team.
Lovely words, Pat, and we'd offer our deepest condolences to all the Doherty family from all in the Irish Independent. Lads, enjoy the semi-final weekend, and we'll be back here next week to dissect it all. Dick and Pat, thanks very much for your time once again.
Pleasure, folks.